This is the Unconference session on placemaking.
For people who are homeless. But the purpose behind that was not exclusively to use them, because it was all very insecure and unsatisfactory, because squatting is not really legal, even in those days. The key point was it persuaded the council that actually owned the houses that they should do a deal with an intermediary that was much more respectable than ourselves, that was attached to the church, in fact, that could then make use of those houses on an interim basis as a meanwhile use in exactly the way that this gentleman describes. And I think to persuade people to do things, you have to take action sometimes of a quite radical measure, which then forces people to compromise with more respectable groups. So that's my suggestion, though I'm not any longer, because I'm no longer 23, the kind that can take radical action, but I am the kind that might be the respectable group that will be happy to facilitate the meanwhile uses. I mean, if you look at somewhere like Gabriel's Wharf in the South Bank, that's a brilliant space, and was, to start with, a meanwhile use that's become rather well established now, and that's the kind of example we want in Leicester, not the kind of Doncaster Earth Centre type example where you spend £1 million or £5 million or whatever it was, and then the thing goes bust. Question for this group is this building a Gabriel's Wharf, or is it Doncaster Earth Centre? If Nick Epps is here, that's a question for him as well.
Well, Howard Rheingold would say what it is up to us.
This is the placemaking session,
Well,
Unconference
in that
session.
case, should we not be doing a deal with some of the landowners around here to set up some interim car parks?
It's about Leicester 2020.
Park close by, even though in another sense that undermines the sustainable city concept. But you can't always have it every which way. And I personally would love to run interim car parks in this area because I can make money doing it, I think. But on the other hand, if the people that actually own the land and are doing the development do it, that will be cheaper and more satisfactory rather than a third party doing it. But someone should do it.
The easy route out, which is going straight into the voluntary sector. We go to look, can we help the underprivileged? Can we go directly into how can we help these voluntary groups? We were just talking over tea this afternoon. All our children go to Apple. They go straight into High Cross and they go and look in the Apple shop. They all want to be there. You go into London at the moment, and Abercrombie and Fitch, their setup that they've got is packed. They're coming from all over the country to go to Abercrombie and Fitch. We could quite easily, as an alternative, say we'll take one of the big banks, that St Martin's Bank, Ayers Bank as it used to be called, hand it over to say on a short-term lease, Abercrombie and Fitch, you come and operate there for 3 years by the city. Now, that as an alternative may well attract far more interest into the city than looking for a new art house or a new theatre or a new digital media centre that really haven't realised yet the sort of returns that we want. We'd have, if we're talking about 2010, I think we could invest much better in recognising that there are organisations in the UK who we want here in this city who would benefit us far better than looking at voluntary sectors coming. I think we instantly want to turn away from those organisations that are already successful instead of trying to pull them in and help them in some way in this current market.
Might I just say that is the perfect thing to put on your wish list?
Please put on a wish list.
Because it's specific. You know, you could say that the wish for 2020 is that by 2020 we will have a mixed economy as you describe, and what are the to-dos to get to it? Well, the first one could be that. That's the kind of thing that, particularly in a group, if a few of you agree with that, you can sign your names to it. You've got one wish list filled in.
I agree. I think the caution should be that St Martin's Bank and the old HSBC on Granby Street and various other buildings that people focus in on as being abandoned, disused and in need of new uses are owned by people who are keeping them empty for commercial reasons. It's not that they're council-owned property. The only council-owned property I can think of immediately in the city centre that would be available, if the council wished to make use of it, would be the old registry office on Pocklington's Walk or the old post office on Bishop Street, and both of those are outside your central shopping core and therefore might not attract the market that you're talking about.
No, that's dead simple to sort out. You know, we've got this current arrangement where I think Arsenal will know 9,000 square feet below empty, we don't pay any business rates on it. Anything above that, here we are in a partnership with the City Council, quite easy to say to, it's probably still NatWest, I think, who owns it,
Yep.
to say to NatWest, who must be paying business rates, we as the city, if you do this deal, we've targeted Abercrombie and Fitch because that building is absolutely perfect for them. It's a big Everard building, as it happens. We've still got the drawings in the office. Absolutely perfect for Abercrombie and Fitch. We say to Alistair, you go into the hierarchy in the City Council and say, we will waive the business rates for that building for 3 years if you allow Abercrombie and Fitch to come in.
Voluntary organisations are mainly those that people don't get paid. Profit organisations such as the one running this building, running Curve, are not-for-profit organisations. It just means any profit goes back into the organisation. I'm from Creative Leicestershire. We support very small arts, design, media businesses. And I'd like to see a middle way between, let's shove an artist in an empty shop for a small amount of time until everybody gets fed up with it, and actually, you know, a lot of hard work goes into that negotiation. Where we've got an incentive to those private landlords, like reduction of business rates, or like a small grant, where they say, well, if we do the building up to this stage, we'll give you a longer lease where it's not just philanthropy, but actually we're getting something more tangible, either a commercial or not-for-profit organisation into that building, and we're talking about refurbishment in a small way, rather than the large projects we've been talking about.
With the key vacant properties in the city centre, we could understand what needs to be done, how we could maybe look at policy or offer guidance to bring those buildings back into use. In a lot of cases, it is about the owners not being willing to bring them back into use, and there's an issue about affordability as well. But all of those issues will be different for each property, and we need to understand what those issues are so we can collectively deal with them. The other thing as well, for me, is I think what I'd like to see is a list perhaps drawn up of how we can create more activity in the city centre generally. How can we get more people in here, into the city, in a whole variety of ways. And one of the quick and easy and simple ways of doing that, is that about dropping in some pod buildings with cafes or bars, or is it about smartening and greening up the city, creating more places where people can gather? What are the quick wins where we can really boost the activity, especially for the young people, and draw up a hit list of those initiatives?
Now for this, when we take it,
Placemaking in there. And then across here, there's an unconference session on sustainable innovation.
we know each other from the scenes.
world.
So they're saying they make drop beats not bombs. They C&D awareness raise a campaign against arms. Big event. Big campaign.
They're allowing you to do it.
I'll be there.
We gave you another which yield more results.
Excellent. There's
If I can remember.
I think
I don't know
quite a bit.
so you
So what are you doing with this? That goes back. Will our wishes be granted?
The unconference delegates are generating wish lists for the future of Leicester in 2020.
So instead of making the kind of
would actually
defenders
save more than 5%.
actually give someone that
Would be looking at straight off.
Apparently there's a certain Citroen car that you can just literally pour cooking fat into the engine and it works.
But then again, this is going to cover a lot more.
But they said the trouble is it smells actually like McDonald's and
Yeah.
driving along.
So it would basically be a community-based collection filtration.
I actually said, I
So
installed
you
some and I said to them,
put 40 quid a
it's
diesel in
within
the
the
car.
permitted rights.
You drive for
Well,
it.